When Donald Ross arrived here in 1898, golf was just a fledgling sport. And you look at what it has become today, and largely it is because of the precedent that he set.
When Ross came to Pinehurst, he was hired as a professional, and the job at the time involved anything that needed to be done. So he was the club maker and sort of the manager and the designer of the golf course.
When Donald Ross came around at the beginning of the 20th century, the role of the golf pro was essentially that of a servant. He was one of the guys that cleared the way to make it a more respectable profession.
In the 1920s, he was probably the highest earning person in the golf industry. In the 1920s, he was making about $2,500 per design.
Above perhaps any other architect ever, he was the most efficient and brilliant at taking all the palette of elements that we have available to us in architecture and rounding them to form in one whole and making it absolutely perfect. He just simply was better at nailing the details of holes than I think any other architect has lived.
He was one of the most prolific golf course architects in the world. He designed over 400 golf courses where over 100 U.S.G.A. championships have been played.
He shaped the American landscape in many ways, and these landscapes, in so many cases, still exist intact in urban environments.
Well, first of all, he was not only a designer, he was a great player. He had won many tournaments.
He played in, I think, 5 or 6 U.S. Opens. He played in the Open Championship, the British Open. He actually finished tied for 10th in the 1910 at St. Andrews.
He shot 66 when he was in his 60s, you know, on number 3 course, which was a tough course at Pinehurst at the time.
I think Donald Ross cared so much about the people that played his golf courses. He conceived a bunker style that was playable. It was really to make you think about how you would play each hole from a different angle every time.
The thing that I've noticed with Ross golf courses is they tend to play tougher than they look. You see these little undulations there, or some of the great features in the greens, or maybe there's a cross bunker, or maybe there's a bunker that's you think is just short of the green, and then you realize what's 20 yards short of it.
To me, the hallmark of a Ross course is he was as good as anybody ever has been at routing a golf course and getting the most out of a piece of property.
Donald Ross was a master of making sure that you couldn't just fly it in there on the greens. You have to, a lot of times, bump it and let it run up so that you can keep it on the green.
The greens are just, we're talking about works of art now.
Being short of a green at a Ross course is always better than going long. If you go long on a Donald Ross course, you're always going to pay some type of penalty because it's a tough up and down.
He believed that golf courses were truly democratic statements. He wanted the company owner, and he wanted the local barkeep, and he wanted the local butcher to play as well. That's very much a Scottish tradition.
Golf was not an exclusive sport in Scotland. And while he did design many courses for very wealthy groups of people, he wanted everyone to be able to enjoy the game.
It suits his Scottish heritage so well that his most famous golf course, Pinehurst No. 2, is open to the public.
He was not only an architect, he was actually living and working at the golf courses that he was at. He was constantly tinkering with his golf courses, even redesigning them, probably pretty much till the day he died, especially Pinehurst No. 2.
Pinehurst No. 2 is almost a century old now. With all the great courses he designed, you know, whether it's Seminole or Oak Hill or Oakland Hills or Wannamoisett, the list could go on and on and on. Pinehurst No. 2, I think he would probably say that was his masterpiece.
Obviously Pinehurst, which is where he spent most of his time, I think is my favorite golf course in the United States from a design standpoint. I've always enjoyed that. I love the greens, I love the approaches, I love the subtleties around the greens, the things you have here. I mean, Pinehurst is a golf course that's 100% tree line without a tree in play.
Well, I think Donald Ross considered No. 2 a great test and a fair test of championship golf in the sense that he demanded good shots from all clubs in the bag.
Herbert Warren Wind called the greatest chipping game golf course ever conceived, because what Ross did, he scooped out these little chipping areas to build his greens. He took that fill and then but they had a little upsweep at the far side. So if you missed it, the ball would go down, but at least stay contained to some degree within that chipping area.
The thing is you don't want every pro to go up there with a putter and putt. You want them to think, hit a pitching wedge, hit a sand wedge, even hybrid or 5 or 3 wood. Put the thought into their into the shot.
His work was beautiful. It reflected so much thought, so much creative value, and it lasts. It lasts.